So let's review the materials we'll be using for this course. What I have to begin with for gesture drawing and the other tool can be used for this as well, but these are Caran d'Ache Neocolor 1 crayons. The thing, the minute I don't know about you, but the minute I hear crayon, immediately I'm thinking of Crayola, and these are a whole other breed of crayons. So when I hear the word crayon, immediately my mind goes to me 5 years old playing with Crayola, and then me 40 years old with my kids playing with Crayolas and being really uptight and anxious and like sort of upset with with how they work, or rather don't work. So these Neocolors, they have a number 2 also, which is water soluble. I live in Florida, and the water soluble ones, if I'm outside drawing, they're melting in my hand, drives me insane. I have color all over the place. But the ones are not. They are just straight up wax crayons, but again, on a whole other order of sensitivity and quality. So you can hold them any way you want, but if I just even lightly, you see that? I wasn't applying pressure, I just dragged it across. Even something as simple as that shows up the sensitivity. But if and I can also get really deep. These are incredibly sensitive crayons. It's not like drawing with a candle, which is like basically, Crayola. So this is the stuff. I use these for gesture drawing if I'm doing more line work, because I can work really quickly. They give me everything that I could ask for as far as line sensitivity and thick and thin, hard and soft. They're gorgeous, right? The other thing that we'll be using a lot of, and you don't have to use these, just something I use. I love them. But the real crux of this course is Prismacolor's NuPastels. The beauty of NuPastels, my understanding anyway, is because a lot of schools are sort of some schools are banning the use of pastels in classrooms because of the particles in the air, the dust in the air, and because you are working with cadmiums and cobalts and things like that. My understanding is that NuPastels are actually designed with a heavier molecule, so they don't float around in the air, and you're not absorbing them through your skin in the same way that you would with soft pastels and things like that. When you're going to go buy these, and don't do it and then not buy the one you did this to, But I go and I test them and see how easy that was to break. I test that because that means it's a good one. If it's hard to break, it's old, and you don't want to buy that because it's not going to draw very well. And here's sort of what they look like. I mean, right now we're going to start with so that's how I test to see if they're good. But don't do that and then not buy that one. Okay? That's just rude. So I do break mine anyway because I want control over the shapes and the lines that I'm putting down. If I have a giant stick, well, I'm not drawing lines that are that wide, right? And I'm not drawing on the tip. I'm not doing pointy lines anyway. So I break them. And I'll do that here too. I've already broken some. So we're going to be working really to begin with just two sticks. So you have light Naples yellow and sepia. And if you can't get sepia, then get burnt umber works and Van Dyke brown. Those all three can work for your dark. Don't do black. Black is too dark for what we're messing with. And so again, what I love about these is the fact that they're square. And as I mentioned before too, these are not Conte crayons. The Conte is really gritty. You can feel it when you're drawing with it. It's hard. These are a whole other order of sensitivity. And you might have to get them started, see how that's, there we go. So really sensitive. And now, so that's just me laying on the, if I was looking at the end of one of these, what we would see, let me get a new page here. What we would see would be, it's a badly drawn box, but that's looking at it head on. And so I'm not, what I'm drawing on, and then if I look at it, you know, let's say, you can see they're not the greatest for lines, like the really precise stuff. So what we're drawing on is where the diamond is the diamond. I'm not drawing the flat, right? If I laid it flat, it's sort of weird, but what I'm doing is rolling up on the tip where these things meet and drawing off of the edge. And then if I apply pressure, let's say over here or over here, I can control the edge, the hard edge, and then let's say I'm pushing on this one. This would be the soft that is not receiving pressure, and I would get edge, softness. I can reverse that too in the same stroke. And you become, the more you play with these, you become incredibly sensitive to that. And I can even like roll up on the tip, right? So the more you play with these, the more you work with them and think about, you know, what you're seeing up there. And you'll see me demonstrate this, but you'll be able to work the full range of what these can offer you. And you can even do like what Mark English was basically calling like dry glazes. And see, they have beautiful colors. And this is, they have a huge range of color. These are just ones I went and bought in, you know, in sort of anticipation of what I may or may not do here. But let me see how easy it was to break. I can like very lightly just drag. It's like I'm adding a glaze of color over that, but I'm not even moving this, you know? And I can get deeper with that, you know? And if I have, like here is, what is this black? Just to show you the difference. Black is black, you know, compared to the subtlety of that sepia. And there's a place for this, for black. I mean, you know, like anything. Sometimes I may want to hit up the hair on one of the drawings just to kind of kick it out, you know. And that'll be like this punch off the page, kind of solidify that head a little bit. But I don't do it very often. It's just every once in a while. It's like, man, I want to hit that. And again, you know, this plastic is just an irritant. They used to not have that, and then it took the retailers forever to like, because they've got numbers on them. They would sit and write down the numbers and do, you know, it took a long time, but it's like, man, but now it's like it's all about the retailer and not about the end user, you know, which really sucks. And again, so like I could even take the Naples yellow light and I could like lay a glaze over even black, you know. Pretty cool. All right. The other tool that's pretty vital just to have it, is a kneaded eraser here. The beauty of a kneaded eraser as opposed to an eraser is that you can shape it and form it. Though right now it's a little stiff. If I keep working it, it gets more and more malleable. And the beauty is I can, like, if I want to draw with it, but I can like sit here and press it and create basically, like, you can see it's getting really loose, like a wedge, like almost like a shark fin. But that allows me to like come in and say, whoa, I just want to pull out a line, a really tight hit, You would have to go over it because these are, or I could, like, be more bold and pull stuff out. And then you just work that pink back into the ball, and it vanishes like magic. A little highlight on the hair, So those are the tools. The paper that I'm working on right here is smooth newsprint, which I prefer over to the rough stuff. It's just something about, the funny thing is I was never a fan of pastel because of the gritty quality of it. It was like, for me, it was always like fingernails on a chalkboard. It was just like, but working on smoother paper and working with the new pastels was a whole different animal. And so I don't mind getting a little dirty that way. I don't mind getting dirty if I'm doing printmaking stuff, but something about the pastels was just put my teeth on edge. But I'm over that now, right? So I don't mind getting dirty with it now because I like the results that I get from doing pastels. Now, my approach of pastels, in art school, they had us working with pastels, and we were using like Rembrandt soft pastels, stuff like that. And they didn't really give us any instruction in it. It was like, you guys need to have these pastels and you're going to draw this still life. And it's like, okay. So we're over there just, they just didn't give us like that kind of info, So you were like, it's like, boot, here's the deep end, figure it out, enjoy, like, oh my God. So I was looking at Degas and Bert Silverman, and Degas would use, he would use these strokes and stuff and build it up. And I was reading too where he would, like, coat the paper with turpentine and work wet and then build on that, and because it would help hold the pastel. So again, there were a lot of reasons why I just never embraced pastel. And then I started working with the Illustration Academy, and Mark English, who I said, developed this sort of process for his students at the not Art Students League, at the Kansas City Art Institute, because he saw they were not seeing the whole figure. And he was like, man, I got to figure out something that will force them to deal. And that involved the use of silhouette and this one process that he works with and the Illustration Academy uses, which I won't actually show you, but my process is an offshoot of that, and it's sort of my way of handling pastel, sort of bouncing off of that, sort of develop my own sort of version of that without going through all the steps that we have students do in that, which I've been asked not to do. So, so here we are, and so, but I just want to get that plug in there because Mark English opened up pastel for me, and he was unbelievably good at it. And watching him work was like always a joy. And being able to draw with him from life, which we would do 3 times a week during the academy, was like one of the high points of my career, just to be in the same room with the guy, and watch him work is always a school in itself, but also just a privilege, So those are the tools, and I will show you also. Let me just grab a sheet of the paper. And so this is the paper that I use. And the paper is instrumental to my love of working with these materials. It's a smooth paper. It's Needham makes it, and it's an environmental text. But it's smooth, and you can see that it's toned. Um, it's not super cheap. It's not super expensive. I think if you break it down, it's like for a sheet like this is maybe 25 cents. That's not bad, right? And I'll usually buy cases of it, and I'll sell it to the students at cost. So, but again, if you go buy pastel paper, it's almost like sandpaper. It just drives me insane. I'm just like, oh my God, it's like, why? I get why, I guess, which is to hold as much pigment as possible. But it just seems, anathema to the beauty of pastel. This smooth paper, it's just a joy to work on. Let me put the color away. So, and the black. So it's just beautiful paper. It just floats on there. And it's right now what you're seeing. If I put down I usually see it's on top of newsprint right now, which newsprint has its own texture, which is actually coming through the paper here a little bit. So what I work on a big stack of this stuff, and it's real smooth. So it's smoother. It has a less texture than that when you're working on a whole stack of this paper. But so those are the tools. So more than likely, unless you go to a place like Mac Papers, a place that sells like a big distributor of paper. In Florida, I go to Mac Papers, which has now left the town I'm in, and it's in Tampa and some other place. So, and I have to special order this paper, and again, it's not by the sheet. It's not that expensive, but you can't just buy it by the sheet. You have to buy 1,000 sheets and they're huge. They're actually 2 of these together. They're big sheets, and I always order it a case, and I have them cut it in half. So I ended up with 2,000 sheets of this paper, which is awesome paper. So, but you may not want 2,000 sheets of anything, and you may not even be able to get this paper. So there is an alternative. I personally don't like it, as it's not the same thing by far, but we have used it when we couldn't get this. It just doesn't give you the leeway of like rubbing and playing and the way this paper does. But it's a Strathmore. They make 2 toned papers. There's a gray and a tan, and it comes in a big pad, 18 by 24 pad. They make smaller pads too, but you want 18 by 24. And you can buy those by the pad at just about any art store that carries paper supplies, pads, sketchbooks, all that stuff. So, but that is an alternative that can work. It's just not as versatile as this stuff. Okay.